what's up guys, and welcome to another video. Now, it's no secret that I've always had a soft spot for Japanese cars, seeing as I've owned like 5 or 6 of them in a row now. But in an attempt to sway me to the dark side, my good friend Kevin has given me the keys to his all-American C6 Corvette Z51. So I've had the car for 4 or 5 days. I've been daily driving it, basically, you know, running all my errands with it, driving to work, and now we're finally in the canyon so we can push it a little bit. And I just want to share my thoughts on this car coming from someone who's into Japanese cars, especially because I think, very interestingly, you can pick up one of these with low mileage. This one, for example, has 40,000 miles for under 25 grand. So in the 20 to 25 grand price range, I want to compare this car to some of the other cars available out there and give you guys my perspective on what it's like to live with a C6 Corvette. So first, let's talk numbers. I mean, this car is a numbers car on paper, and that's where it beats pretty much anything from Japan that you can pick up for 20 to 25 grand. Since it is an 06 model and not the 08, this does have the smaller 6.2 liter LS2 V8, which makes 400 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. Having the Z51 performance package, it does give you quite a few little goodies for, you know, track performance. So you've got bigger brakes, uprated springs and dampers, shorter final drive, so you do have shorter gear ratios. This car also has an oil cooler to help keep those temps lower when you're pushing the engine. You know, with a good old-fashioned overhead valve American V8, rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, this car is all about taming the power. I mean, that's the primary handling characteristic of this car when you start pushing it, is it's keeping that power in check, not getting too overzealous, let's say, with the throttle pedal. And as I found out from daily driving this car for about 4 days now, this engine has torque everywhere. I mean, obviously coming from an S2000, you know, Honda guy, it's not going to be a surprise that I would think that, right? But, you know, I've driven other cars with V8s, you know, like E92 M3, and this engine is just on a completely different level when it comes to low-end torque. I mean, the fact that GM actually implemented a first to fourth gear lockout in this car to prevent the gas guzzler tax, meaning if you're shifting at a relatively low RPM, like between 2,000 to 3,000 RPM from first gear and shifting up, it'll physically lock you out of second and third and force you to go into fourth. Try doing that in an S2000 and see what happens. You'll pretty much stall instantly or bog the engine really badly. But because this engine just makes so much low-end torque at like 800 RPMs in fourth gear, it has no problem keeping the motor spinning. I mean, you can even roll into the power and get good acceleration out of it. The previous owner of this car has disabled that lockout feature, so I get to enjoy the entire 6 gears of this car. It's a pretty big, wide, long car, but it's also not exactly that heavy either. So I mean, it's still got a really good power to weight ratio, only a couple 100 pounds heavier than my NSX, for example, which was considered a really light car at the time. This thing will take the corners pretty quick, especially with these sticky Goodyear Eagle F1 tires. But before I start pushing the car a little bit here, let me talk about the actual day-to-day driving experience of this car. First of all, I really like all the driver controls, which is something I didn't really expect from an American car. The steering is nicely weighted, gives you good feedback. The shifter does require a bit more effort, but it's got this really nice, like, meaty mechanical feel to it. I mean, it's not a shifter that you can speed shift very easily. You have to be deliberate with your shifts, and as a result, it's a very satisfying experience. The clutch pedal is incredibly light for a 400 horsepower, 400 foot-pound car. It really does remind me of my S2000 clutch in that it has a very short throw, it's very light and nice and progressive, and slips just enough to where you can get it in gear and, you know, have perfectly smooth shifts every time. And also, if you haven't noticed, this car does have a bucket seat, which unfortunately does not fit in this car very well. I feel like I'm sitting like 2 inches too high. Getting in and out of this car is just a total pain in the ass, but once you're in it, you know, it works, it's fine, it holds you in place. But overall, all the driving inputs of this car are very, very nice. Here's where I have a problem with it. I don't know why they put a Chevy Cobalt steering wheel in a $50,000, you know, flagship sports car. I mean, you could have just spent the extra $50 to $100 to at least maybe give it a nice leather stitching or something. I don't know. This steering wheel is just really, really cheap and plasticky feeling, and as small of a complaint as that sounds, if you really think about it, what are you actually holding on to 90% of the time, hopefully 100% of the time that you're driving? The steering wheel. So it really goes a long way when manufacturers put some emphasis on the usual touch points, the steering wheel, the shifter. I really can't fathom why they didn't put a better steering wheel on this thing. And that being said, the rest of the interior, I think ergonomically it's designed pretty damn well. I mean, everything's very easy to reach. It's very driver focused, fairly intuitive if I'm honest. Again, when you come down to the material qualities, that's where the car falls apart. I mean, there's a lot of brittle plastic here. I don't know if you can hear how flimsy that sounds. Some scratchy plastic on the door here. But you know, I will forgive it for that, because these are not things that you're gonna be touching all the time. And the cost savings from there, they've been able to redirect that into the performance of the car. I mean, what other car can you buy? I mean, even back in 06 for 50 grand, that gave you a 0 to 60 of like 4 seconds and a top speed, I mean, probably nearing 200 miles an hour, right? Where the lack of material quality really does show itself more apparently is when you're driving over a bumpier road and then the car, case in point, did you hear that? I mean, yes, I have some stuff in the trunk that's bouncing around, but you can hear the panels, the plastic panels, just kind of rubbing against each other, and you can hear the friction. It's just not very pleasant. And since this car is equipped with a Z51 package, the suspension is quite a bit stiffer than the base Corvette, which I've also driven. There's a lot of traffic today. I'm just poodling around in third gear here, not even 1,500 RPMs. And I feel like at any point, if I just want to put my foot down, there's absolutely no need to downshift. Put my foot down, and within 3 seconds, I will be over the speed limit. Oh my God. See, that's the problem with this car. If I put my foot down for more than 2 seconds, I'm already going way too fast for the public road, even for these open canyon roads. Good Lord. Oh my God. Lots of grip though. Lots of front grip in this car. You can really trust the front end. It's the rear end you got to worry about. Luckily, I have traction control and stability control on right now. And that's where this car is so different from an S2000. I mean, you can get an AP2, like an 06 Plus, for 20 to 25 grand. Same price as this car with low miles. And while yes, that car is completely dwarfed by the C6 in terms of on-paper stats, you know, probably braking performance, acceleration, top speed, lateral Gs, probably everything, right? When it comes down to it, you can floor that car more of the time, and that's what makes it fun on, not even on public roads, but even on a racetrack. You're constantly rowing through the gears, hitting that, you know, red line, and just, you have to work for the performance, keep the RPMs high. This car, you can blow past anything you want, pretty much, in 4th, 5th gear. Oh my God, I'm just in 3rd gear, 2,500 RPMs, and I still feel like so much performance on tap at any given point. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a big number to hit in 3rd gear, barely even trying. Also, this car has an unidentified aftermarket exhaust. I'm not sure what model it is, but it sounds pretty damn good. LS has got great throttle response. I know some people criticize it for feeling a little sluggish in its response, but I mean, yes, it doesn't have the greatest top end compared to like obviously Hondas or even like a Coyote 5.0 from a Mustang, but it makes up for it because you have so much torque everywhere, and lower in the RPMs, you do get good throttle response, and it feels very linear. I've never been a big American car guy, but I am sold on the LS. Let's just put it that way. But when I am pushing the car, you know, a little harder in the canyons here, it's not just the abundance of power and torque that make it a little bit of a handful to drive, but also the car feels big. I mean, it is a big car, right? The front end, you can barely see over it, and the car's very wide as well. Like when I parked into my garage for the first time, I stepped out and I was like, holy crap, like I'm practically in the middle of a garage, because usually in my NSX or S2000, as long as I get within a certain distance from the left wall here, I know I'll have plenty of space on the right side. Not in this car. I have to be a lot more mindful. Why is there so much performance? There's too much power. I don't know what to do with it. What a car. What an engine. I mean, at this point, I'm just rolling through the gears just to have fun with the tranny. I mean, there is absolutely no good reason to have to downshift to second at any point here. Third gear has more than enough torque. When you get to speed and you're starting to, you know, go through those corners, linking them together, that's when the car starts to make sense. The performance starts to make sense. You don't give a damn about, you know, the material quality or the fact that the body's all fiberglass. None of that stuff matters anymore. All that matters is that's all that matters. And my camera has fallen off of its mount. Too much torque. I also had the opportunity to ride with my buddy Kevin in this car at Buttonwillow last time, and I came across with mixed feelings because the car felt so fast on the straights in both acceleration, top speed, braking, and it had so much grip in the corners, but it's not a fingertips kind of driving experience, right? He basically had 90 to 100% grip the entire time, and he still set a pretty fast lap time for his first time ever at Buttonwillow. Me with my S2000, even though its limits may be lower, you know, I was playing a little bit more at the edge, and that's what made it fun, because you have to work the engine harder, you have to downshift. If you miss a downshift and you end up in a higher gear, I mean, anyone who knows S2000s, I mean, you will know that's not going to be a pleasant experience. You're going to have to downshift. The torque at 6,000 RPMs in an S2000 is still maybe 50% of the torque at 1,000 RPMs in the Corvette. That being said, I mean, both cars have their pros and cons like I talked about, and it really depends on what you want. If you want a car that feels fast everywhere without trying that hard, I mean, I don't think there's another car besides the Corvette that will give you that same experience for under 25 grand. But if you want more of a finesse driving experience where the car forces you to be on your game at all times, the S2000 is a great learning tool. I mean, ultimately its limits are not super high unless you put quite a bit of modification into it. Cornering limits are high. I mean, it's just a straight line and the braking isn't all that fantastic, but you always have to be driving that car with your fingertips. It's not a ham-fisted car the way that this car sometimes can feel. All right, so now that we got the camera back up and running, closing thoughts, this car is absolutely fantastic for its intended purpose. If you want a car that is effortlessly fast in a straight line and in the corners and will give you a lot of practicality for daily driving, the interior is comfortable and spacious. You got a lot of storage space in the hatch. I mean, God bless America, right? I mean, Japan does not make a car anywhere like this in terms of the overall driving experience. And I'm glad that we live in a world where different manufacturers from different parts of the world can make cars that are so drastically different. Case in point, C6 Corvette S2000 that are at the same relative price point. If it was my money, I would have one of these and an S2000. So let's just put it that way. I really do have a lot of respect for the Corvette. I'd love to try a C7 someday because I heard the refinement in that car has just gotten to a new level, which is, I mean, obviously one of my main complaints with this car, with the steering wheel and the interior quality and everything. So if any of you guys have cars you'd like me to feature on the channel, whether they are American, Japanese, German, Italian, whatever, let me know. I'm always down for new automotive experiences, and I'd love to capture it on camera. So thanks for guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. I don't know, is there anyone?